Hi there, podcast fans. I'm Tom Gibbs. Welcome to Telegraph Audio Football Club. Today, it's finally time to say goodbye to Unai as Emery leaves Arsenal and professional underwear model Freddie Ljungberg steps into the dugout to mastermind a tool draw at Norwich City. It's looking good at the top for Liverpool as they extend their lead, but you can never declare a title race over in December, can you? Plus, QSF gets his P45 in WD18 for failing to deliver, Amazon Prime matches are upon us, and the Euro 2020 draw. Let's take you now into the audio recording facility where I'm joined by returning hero Mina Rizuki. How are you, Mina?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, reasonably well, thank you. Rested, Mina?
No, not that much, to be honest.
Oh, no.
No, you're never really rested when you come back from holiday because you're trying so hard to take advantage of every minute.
Yeah, I see your point, but I'm disappointed to hear it. Alongside her, it's another returning hero, Matt Law.
Hi.
What's going on?
You've already lied.
I'm trying to be a professional, man. Some of us care about how this
scared.
podcast
There's
sounds.
a massive pile of tissues sat right next to me, and I am quite frankly frightened at what's going to happen to me during this part.
To be clear, he is ill. That's what's happened.
Do you know what is the worst and most tedious thing in the world, though? It's people talking about how ill they are.
I'll talk about how you...
Okay, yeah, you do a running commentary. Completing the lineup, the gang's all here. JJ Ball.
Woo!
Hello.
When was the last time we were all together?
I think it might have been pre-season. I think you three have done a show with Mina presenting and someone else, but I think the four of us together might have been pre-season, which is a disgrace.
Wow.
Is it really that long ago?
That can't be right.
That's because Matt's too famous for us now.
You're on a
JJ is
lot
taking
more than
loads
me.
of random holidays.
Yeah, it's unacceptable, and we need to get it right over the Christmas break. We'll go on a sort of team-building exercise somewhere in a cabin and work it all out from there.
Can I excuse myself already?
Let's start with Arsenal and Unai Emery, who has departed from our lives. Their new era began at Carrow Road on Sunday. Sam Dean was there to see it for us.
I suppose the most positive element of Freddie Ljungberg's first game in charge of Arsenal was that for the first half an hour at least, you could see what he was trying to do. You could see what the plan was. Arsenal played in a 4-3-3, which is also more of a 4-2-3-1 at times, with Joe Willock pushing further forward and Aubameyang far right and Mesut Ozil far left. There was more width to their game, more composure on the ball, a bit more sort of control, which Arsenal fans have really come to expect over the last 2 decades, really, under Arsene Wenger, and that control very much disappeared under Unai Emery. Then they got caught twice on the break, which you could say happens. You could also say that's a weakness in this team, that they are so vulnerable to transitions. As Freddie Ljungberg said afterwards, that's a clear area for them to work on. And that's the first half, really, in summarisation. But the second half was far different. The second half was very much like Emery's Arsenal again, and it was, to put it politely, it was just chaos at the back. Norwich were going through time and time again. Todd Cantwell, Timu Pukki, McLean, they all had great chances, and only the brilliance of Bernd Leno in the Arsenal goal stopped that from being what could easily have been a heavy defeat, much like the same as it was against Southampton last weekend when Arsenal got a 2-2 draw, but might easily have shipped 4 or 5 goals in their own net. So there were little things to work on, and you can see what Ljungberg is trying to do, which is a positive, but overall it's going to take a lot of time to iron out the defensive mistakes and the sort of the chaos with which Arsenal slip into so easily.
So, Matt, not to be outdone by Spurs, Arsenal sack their manager. What went wrong for Emery?
With just everything that's gone wrong at Arsenal for a long time. The new era, by the way, on Sunday looked a lot like the old era. Just the era. It's just the same, isn't it? Look, changing the manager will fix some problems for sure at some point, you would hope. Maybe I'm not sure about that.
Do you mean the change that will come after the interim period? 'Cause
Yeah,
no one thinks Ljungberg's going to be the long-term answer.
That he might be.
You would have thought so if he'd won.
Yeah, or if he gets a couple of wins coming. But there's just so many more problems there. The ownership is just appalling. The decision makers don't seem to be doing a very good job. Sanali, Edu, Husfami. There's issues far bigger than the manager there. And while you can get in a manager who will be able to have an impact to some level, I just don't see that club moving anywhere near as far forward as the fans would want them to until there's some proper change higher up or some properly good decision making, which just hasn't happened in a long, long time.
Feels like appointments are often reactions to the previous person's failings, Mina. So what will Arsenal be looking for, do you think, this time to correct what their perceived failures of Emery were?
This is a difficult one because I think that initially when they were interviewing at the time, Mikel Arteta looked like the man that really had charmed them and that had looked to be the most suitable for the job, but they always erred on the side of caution, and that was a little bit why they went for Unai Emery in the end, because this was the man who had done a good job with Sevilla, who'd obviously had his problems at PSG, but it was still a big club, still dealt with big players, and they thought he'd be a safe pair of hands. And I think that's really their issue, is that there's really a lack of identity. It's not a club that belongs in a pair of safe hands. And the way that the club is conducted on a business level, just like Matt was saying, in the sense that there is this sort of group unit management team, but there's just so many voices there. There isn't one that is willing to take responsibility, that is willing to make the decisions. And you wonder to yourself, who is going to choose the manager? Who is the man that you listen to? Who is the loudest voice in the room? And you're not really sure. And so who they're going to go for, there is just a number of people being linked to the job, from Pochettino because he's good with kids, to Allegri because he's coming from Juventus and, you know, he was super successful there. But I think what they need is a man who actually perhaps does have the loudest voice in the room. And I don't think it's either one of those. I think there comes a point where charisma now matters more than anything when looking for a coach. You need a man who can really rally the troops, who can communicate with his players, who can discipline, but at the same time be a man that they're willing to talk to, that they're willing to die for. And you notice the ones that have succeeded are not necessarily the greatest tacticians, but the ones who just simply know how to communicate with their players, such as Zinedine Zidane, such as, for example, obviously like Jurgen Klopp, who's the most charismatic coach, Pep Guardiola. And those are the men that keep moving forward, because Allegri, for all his brilliance, wasn't necessarily a man that charmed everyone. And that's potentially why he lost the job.
Who would you have then, Mina? Who do you think is the best candidate for Arsenal?
There isn't one. Honestly, there isn't one at the moment. That if I'm thinking,
what are they going to do? Just shut the club down?
Don't have a manager.
Yeah, because I don't think that there is one that's available. And why would Pochettino destroy his legacy?
Yeah, Poch doesn't feel likely, does it? I mean, they can have him on their shortlist.
No,
if
there's lots of different reasons. I'm going to write one of the reasons today, so better not say it on here.
But he's a guy who really is sensitive and he cares a lot about his rep.
Yeah, for sure. Brendan Rodgers, for me, ticks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah.
Harder job than Leicester, though, isn't it, at the moment? If he leaves
It is a harder job than Leicester, but these jobs don't come around that often when you're in a position where you could realistically get it. And although at the moment Arsenal might be a step backwards from where he's at, it's a massive club. It's one of England's great clubs. You'd have to take it. I mean, I suspect it won't be till the end of the season. But I think he ticks some boxes, because in terms of a reaction against Emery, as Mina said, they'll make sure they get a good communicator. That's like number one. Brendan Rodgers is a good communicator. They would ideally, I think, probably like some sort of Premier League experience. Not necessarily have to. It doesn't necessarily rule out Allegri, for instance, but if they could, he's got that. He's got big club experience from his time at Liverpool. He's worked with big players, with Suarez. He ticks a lot of boxes. I'm not saying he's perfect by any means, but of all the candidates, I think he's the one.
Yeah, could certainly see it at the end of the season. What did you make of their performance against Norwich, JJ? Did you see any encouraging signs that Ljungberg's going to be a tactical mastermind for them, or change much about their problems?
You're laughing while you're asking the question.
Mina, I'll be honest with you. I'm just trying to get through it today. So.
I'm sorry.
No, there was no difference. But I think he only had.
They look more up for it, didn't they? A little bit more sprightly.
Nah, I mean maybe, but Ljungberg only had, I think, 2 days, maybe one training session, because you wouldn't have a proper training session the day before a match. So the shape's kind of weird. They played a sort of a 4-2-3-1. It was also a 4-2-2-2-2. But regardless of shape, the first thing that I thought was immediately a bad idea was to put Skodran Mustafi next to David Luiz. Such a weird thing to do. Both of them at fault for goals. And then he played Callum Chambers on the right, so there's no width on the right if you're playing a narrow shape through the middle. Kolasinac, what is he?
A unit.
Exactly. Everyone describes him as a unit, but he's not good enough to be Arsenal's left back. It was weird they got rid of Nacho Monreal, because he was such a much better player. Tierney on the bench, but I think it's because he picked up an injury, but it's still weird. Ozil's back in the team, Xhaka's back in, and he wasn't very good. It didn't look great, and Aubameyang got his 2 goals, but one was off the back of a set piece, and the other one was a penalty that he also missed.
It's actually a really bad team when you look at it.
Yeah, they don't look very good at the moment at all, do they? What about Emery, Mina? How is he regarded on the continent, and how are we going to pass this period at Arsenal in his career? What's the final verdict on him?
I think when he was coming up with Sevilla, which people forget that this was a club that had Monchi in charge, and Monchi is one of those great sporting directors, albeit he didn't have a great time at Roma, but he is somebody who knew how to identify talent. He had a very strong charisma, and he helped sort of groom and help Emery do really well. And at the time, he had this great reputation, obviously. Going to PSG, this was a guy that was really good in winning European competitions, although it's not exactly the Champions League, it was the Europa League. And then everyone sort of understood when he didn't do a great job there because of the way that management is at PSG, because of the fact that there's Neymar and all these big figures and no help from the CEO who looked to be more of a puppet of Neymar than actually his sort of, boss. And you sort of were like, okay, he's bad. Tactically, he doesn't always make the right decisions. Some of his substitutions are very strange. The likes of Draxler came out and spoke against him. But you always thought PSG has a bad attitude in the dressing room. So you didn't know whether to blame Unai Emery entirely. Wentz goes to Arsenal, where he has sort of a lot more license. And I think that now we're like, okay, this is you. Like, you should have more of a character. You should, die by your sword or die by the convictions that, sort of, how do you say that?
Yeah, I think everyone will know what you're saying.
Okay. But you know what I mean? Like a sense of like, this is what I believe in, not a case of, okay, I've decided against this, but I don't want to play Ozil, but now I really need Ozil, so let's bring back Ozil. It just looks like he doesn't actually have a plan, a strategy, a belief in himself. He's so willing to, sway either side. And I think that's lost a lot of sort of belief around him or any trust that people had in him. And now I'm not entirely sure he'll get the big jobs anymore.
You know that bit in The Simpsons where Santa's little helper and oh god, and Snowball 2 look at each other when Grandpa's left with them and they roll their eyes. All the stories I've heard about Emery from this week sound like the players are like that. The worst one I read is that he got them all to gather around. He got the travel coordinator to give them a team talk as one. Another one was that he got all the players to put their hand in the middle like it's a after-school TV special and chant Arsenal, Arsenal to try and get them revved up for a game. He just doesn't look quite in touch with what he's doing. He's just, maybe, the guy is just not there.
Yeah, quite tough to see him getting another job in this country, certainly at that level. Let's talk about the title race, which we can declare over in December. Nothing has ever gone wrong before, has it, by saying the title race is over in December? I'm not having it. I think it's still very much alive. But Man City did drop points again at Newcastle. Kevin De Bruyne and Jonjo Shelvey with magnificent goals. Which did you enjoy more of those 2 goals?
Oh, De Bruyne. If one whacks the underside of the bar,
what a sound it made.
It's extremely satisfying. It just makes it a much better goal.
Yeah. I was wondering, though, if there's an argument for Shelby's being more enjoyable because it was the sort of unexpected thing. And
I like that one the most, to be honest. I thought it was so nicely organised,
Oh, don't get me wrong. It probably technically is a bit better and dramatically it's better, but just the whack on the underside of the crossbar just fills me with joy.
I was live blogging it and people watched it in the office and there was a couple of people, including me, who stood up and swore loudly. It came out of nowhere.
Did you all say the same swear words?
Well, the thing is, you saw it landing and you was going to hit it, but it came so quickly. It's like, hell, it was so
oh my
quick.
Word!
I know. It'll get bleeped in edit. Don't worry.
Get bleeped. Out.
The censors are very good.
I almost swore in reaction to you swearing then.
You would also have been bleeped.
2 wrongs don't make a right. What about Steve Bruce, Matt? He's
doing well.
He is,
He's
right?
doing really well.
Newcastle are gambling a little bit more than they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's not...
no? JJ's
I don't think you can argue that it's worse football than Rafa. I think it's just quite similar.
It's exactly the same.
No, it's not.
But
it is.
He's got more points than Rafa did this time last year. He's picking up points against the big teams, which I'm not convinced... Oh, no, they did it with Rafa, to be fair. They'd always get a 0-0 draw or something.
Yeah, the same thing, the same stats. Well. It came out. Against those big teams, they always came away with about between 20 and 30% possession, exactly the same shape. They're bottom of the league on XG, so it should they should level out and. But
you can only say he's doing well because he went in there into such a poisonous environment.
Yeah.
with not a very good squad and not a lot of money to spend.
Can I say the one thing that is a bit different is them dribbling, is the amount of how many chances they had in sense of like carrying the ball forward.
Yeah, but they don't create chances.
Like as in terms of how much Rafa Benitez against their play against Manchester City and Steve Bruce, you can see that there's a lot more dribbles and carrying the ball forward and just heading, like being more vertical in their ways. That's the one difference that you can say. So they're a little bit more enterprising, although they don't have Salomon Rondon.
Some of that's the San Maximan effect, I suppose, as well. A very eventful game for Liverpool. What was Alisson thinking with that handball, JJ?
He came off his line to try and block. I don't know why he punched it with his hand. Maybe he didn't realise quite where he was, but I don't think that would be the case. But at least he got it. I mean, they didn't end up losing, so it was fine what he did, really.
Clever free kick from Brighton.
Really clever free kick. Loved it.
Should have been closed down. It shouldn't have been.
It should have done, but still, you can only praise them for being clever and Dunk for being very switched on. Brighton are decent. Brighton are a decent team. They play really nice football, and their possession stats were pretty good against Liverpool, I see. Liverpool aren't playing that well.
Declaring the title race over in December, awarding 6-year contracts to managers feels like a thing that we've seen before and hasn't always gone that well.
No, I suspect there might have been some contact from another club that prompted that.
Interesting.
There you go. But Liverpool aren't playing that well, are they? Salah, what's happened to Salah?
The guy's
Salah's
played for like 300 years, like non-stop.
That's a good point.
I think he's just really tired now.
Do you?
I'm tired.
He got subbed off again, didn't he? He's gone really, really quiet, and yet they keep winning. I thought it was massive for them because, a week where Fabinho gets injured.
Yeah.
They played Napoli. It looks like a tough week. It looks like it's set up maybe for a week where they might drop points and actually City can go closer. So for them to stretch the lead feels extremely significant.
But Brighton's stats were just... I mean, if I was them, I'd offer a six-year contract straight away. They were more accurate with their passing. They were better in the air, not when it came to the goals. They had 55% possession. It was dribble after dribble. Adrian made 5 saves since coming on. I mean, this is a great side.
They're really impressive. I watched them...
And it's not a great squad.
I watched them live against Villa. And they went down to 10 men and outplayed Villa with 10 men, completely outplayed Villa. We were really lucky. He's got them playing really good football completely. And to do it so quickly.
Yeah.
Because, under Houghton, they were a completely different style of team. And in less than 6 months, he's absolutely changed it. I think he's done a really good job.
Does he want to come to Juve?
What about Leicester, JJ? Title challengers? I think
it's weird. So... Sort of yes, but also no. Again, if you look at underlying stats, especially XG, things like that, they should also level out. But then
they're overperforming at the moment.
They are overperforming at the moment. But the thing is, players like Jamie Vardy and Maddison are overperforming, but good players do overperform, like Harry Kane has for years and years. And I think they are actually that good. And I reckon there's a chance that Leicester can keep this up for a while. They're probably going to have a squad depth, and especially if they pick up any injuries to the players they've got. I think Ndidi is the best player they have on that team and keeps everything together. But you look at their fullbacks are probably the best in the league at the moment. I think Man City would take half their players as well in the first team. But I mean Everton. It was weird this game because Silva made his first sort of big tactical switch. He changed his shape to a back 3. But the only real difference I saw in Everton in this game, other than the shape, was that they seemed really revved up, like he'd kept them in a cage and was punching them in the face, getting them all fired up for this game. And they come out and
desperate times.
They roar into it and they're snapping at tackles. And Leicester didn't like it. You could see it was really aggressive. They weren't enjoying it because it's hard to get yourself up to that level if you're not already there. And as soon as they inevitably tired in the second half, that intensity dropped, the press dropped. Rodgers put on a second striker, so they had a 2 to go against the back 3, which just makes absolute sense. And they were able to get back into it. I don't know. Marco Silva is in a bit of trouble, but I think it's just the players they've got are just not good enough. And I wonder whether that's his fault or the recruitment that they've done over so long.
Yeah, plenty of questions to be asked there. It does look like Silva's a little bit of a dead man walking, Matt. There's not much point in sacking him now, though, is there, with the Liverpool game coming up next?
No, I mean, that's one of the traps Watford fell into when they brought in Flores and brought him in ahead of like Arsenal, Man City and Wolves. And you do have to time it, because if you're looking for that bounce, there's no point giving in an impossible game and then it all falling flat within a couple of weeks. So, but the clubs get themselves into these ridiculous situations. They called Silva into a meeting after the Norwich defeat and openly talked about sacking him in front of him. He knows they kind of want to sack him, We're now on a game-by-game basis, which means he's going to get sacked because he's not going to win every game. It feels stupid. It just feels a stupid way to run a football club. But I sympathise. What I would do, and I'm not even joking, you're going to laugh at this, I would sack him now. I would put Duncan Ferguson, who's at the club, in charge against Liverpool, because I just think they'd probably still lose.
But they'd be very, very frightened.
If you've got any chance of getting anything at Liverpool and getting some sort of artificial bounce for one game, stick Duncan Ferguson in charge, threaten all the players, really punch them in the face rather than pretend to punch them.
Oh my God.
And the fans will go mad, and you might suddenly get away with it, and then a point after that.
I really don't
Love
know
it,
if any manager would make a difference to that club just now. The players are so medium that they're not. I don't know. If you come in and give them like the fire, that's what Silva had with him against Leicester, and it wasn't good enough and it ran out. I mean, maybe he'd get an extra goal and he might have come away with it. The only other thing I think you could do would be to make them super, super defensive in a really boring 5-4-1.
They're better than they are, though, aren't they?
that.
I mean, they're like fourth or fifth from bottom. They're better than that.
Do you think they've overspent then on mediocrity?
Oh yeah, they bought absolute nonsense. But I mean, they're again, we look at underlying stats. XG wise, they should be. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They should be 7th.
Right.
So again, they're not hitting, but mostly it's because they've got no striker, and that is bad recruitment.
They should buy Mitrovic in January.
Yeah, Mitrovic. I agree. I saw that tweet. Yeah, Alexander Mitrovic should be right in. I totally agree with.
Look, I think Moise Kean came really close.
Yeah, but it's not good enough, and he's not quite there yet. And you can see why Juventus let go of him. And Calvert-Lewin is not a striker that can play for someone in the top 6. No way. Richarlison's all right. He's fine. There's just whoever you bring in is gonna. There's only a few different shapes you can play with them. There's only so many shapes in football you can play. But if the players aren't good enough individually and the team isn't quite there, and you can see it's missing bits and pieces, it's not balanced. It's been badly put together. There's not much they can really do. And I mean, if they played like Newcastle, they'd probably be better off because they'd concede far fewer goals, and they'd be able to, they've got better players going forward and might get it. But it's so boring to watch. You can't really get away with doing it.
I bet they'd be in top 4 if they had Conte in charge.
Anyone would be.
Who wouldn't, Nina? Who wouldn't?
Norwich would be. Watford would be.
I think you're pushing this.
Nope.
I think I might agree with that.
Really, Norwich?
Yeah, I think there's some managers, like we were saying before we didn't have an argument another time.
Yeah.
I think there are some managers that are so good that they do get that little extra more out of them, and they do get teams to outperform on things like SG and players just to be better.
I just think that his tactics can be like, I feel like Leicester were a bit like Conte, like, just very simple, 3 centre backs, basically, like 2 wing backs, let's go, 2 points of reference at the top. It just simplifies everything, and I think it brings out the best in some of your players.
Hello, I'm Marianne Jones, and I'm the editor of the Telegraph magazine, which means I spend my week overseeing every page, from the front cover to hard-hitting news reports, columns and lifestyle features. We go to print weekly, so we have a little bit longer to craft our journalism, using our award-winning writers and fantastic art and photography teams. That means we can publish long-form pieces that really get to the heart of the story. Just recently, our cover interviews with Joaquin Phoenix and James Middleton made global headlines, while our writer Mick Brown's investigation into false memory syndrome won a major press award. And the fact of the matter is, we couldn't have done all of this without our subscribers. Without them, we just can't commission the stories you like reading or make podcasts like this one. Why not try out a 30-day subscription to The Telegraph completely free? Go to thetelegraph.co.uk/audio.
Let's rattle through the rest of the Premier League now. It's goodbye, Quique Sanchez Flores. So soon after saying hello again, Quique Sanchez Flores, Mina. Where do Watford turn now? Back into some of their other past managers, perhaps?
No, I think that's what they're supposed to not do. I think that there comes a time when you have to just give up on all your exes and actually start looking for somebody that can do something special for you. But the choices are, I mean, this is you can tell this is a club run by Italians because they just absolutely have no patience for anything that they don't think is amazing. They've offered Quique Sanchez Flores absolutely no, I think, time to really create something. But at the same time, having said that, it didn't look like any of his players were that sort of buying into any philosophy, and you wonder whether the squad is really up to scratch. And he's made some rather odd decisions, but I honestly do not know who is on the level that can do something special with him, that can start to build something, and at the same time be willing to take this job, because it's scary to work for the Pozzo family because you have a very limited shelf life.
Heartwarming stuff at Chelsea, where David Martin, son of Alvin, made his Premier League debut at 33, kept a clean sheet, some tears afterwards. Marvellous. Chelsea, a bit disappointing, Matt, but Pellegrini's brought himself some time with this result.
Yeah, definitely. I'd imagine he can now afford to lose to Wolves in the week, and he'll be all right.
I look forward to losing to Wolves.
Yeah, exactly. I've thought, I didn't see this one coming. I've thought that Chelsea would trip up at some stage quite soon. I'd been in Valencia with them, where they were incredibly lucky in the Champions League, and they've had a few like that over the last few weeks where teams haven't taken their chances against them. But I mean, what Pellegrini did really well, I was at the Spurs game where there was just no real kind of soul about West Ham. And it felt a very soulless team. And he brought in, the lad in goal is clearly West Ham born and bred. The fans were up for that. He swapped Haller for Antonio, who definitely is one of those who the fans connect to.
But he is very good.
But it was quite simple stuff. I think he just played into the hands of, actually, it was fairly simple decisions, but he made them all and it worked. Just getting some life about them again.
I think there's just one thing that he did that was brilliant, was just take away Roberto, and that's it, they won.
What about Tottenham, JJ? Still continuing to be lots of fun, scoring lots, conceding lots under Jose Mourinho. What's he done with Ali? Why is he suddenly looking back to his best?
Playing him higher up the pitch rather than as Nate. He's playing as a second striker, and the style of play is much more direct and quicker, so the ball is getting through the lines in a far faster fashion than it has been with Pochettino, which was, I think we talked about this before, but with Pochettino it was very tip-tap, and then teams got behind the ball and they weren't able to get through them. But now they're just pinging it. It's maybe taking one touch on the way through to Ali, and the way he times his runs is such that he ends up in the box with space and time to shoot. And he's brilliant at that. And I think he's at his best when he's having to improvise on the spot rather than think about things. And that style and speed of play is why he's doing so well.
And we've got to have a word on Villa, Matt. How good were they in their draw at Old Trafford? Wonderful goal from Jack Grealish.
Jack Grealish is magic, isn't he?
Loved his celebration as well.
He's just magic.
Laughing it up at the Stretford end.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to do stuff like that if he's really going to be seen as that next level of player outside Villa. And people are really watching him now, and he's performing. He's just fantastic to watch. It's good fun with Villa. They're not the best team in the world. They make mistakes at the back, but they're good to watch. They've got good players to watch. They go everywhere and try and play and try and win. They don't just sit back anywhere. Probably why they are where they are in the league when people say, they should be a bit higher up, because they're naive. But it's nice. It's good to watch. It's fun.
Staying up?
I think they will. I think they'll stay down there because they'll throw away points and they'll throw away goals. But I'd much rather that than them try and sit back. But I do think they'll stay. If you got Jack Grealish, John McGinn in a midfield, and you're half competent everywhere else, you should have a very good chance of staying up.
They're still not Sheffield United.
Oh, Mina. Great bunch, Sheffield United. This week, we have the first set of games on Amazon on Tuesday and Wednesday. This, to me, JJ, feels like probably the future. Everything viewable at once. Wonderful if you're at home on the sofa. Not so great if you're a match-going fan. We're going to get a taste for this, aren't we? Being able to watch exactly what we want when we want.
I mean, you already can, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyone vaguely computer literate has been able to, not I, of course, or anyone in this room, have been able to watch these sorts of things. But
Perish the thought.
There is a way to have done this for ages, and it's a classic example of authorities and people in charge not catching up with how the technology is. You should be able to watch these sorts of things on the same day. You should be able to choose the game you're watching.
Do you agree with the 3 p.m. Saturday TV blackout?
No, I think people will still go to games. I would still rather go to a game.
So you think they should all be on TV?
I think they should all be on TV.
Okay, take a lesson from Italy. In Italy, you can watch every Serie A, Serie B game on. Before, you used to be able to watch it on Sky, and no one went, because why would they?
But I bet in the 90s it would have worked. When it was like the super, not to say it's not the best league in the world, but if it was super high up then, I bet it would have had a better attendance.
This is the thing. I mean, a lot of the reason why we blame the fact that there is no stadium attendance, other than the fact that the stadiums are, a lot of them in hideous quality, is because of the fact that if you can watch it at home and you can avoid the madness of all the traffic and getting there and stuff, and you have access to every single game and another channel that shows you the highlights from every single game, the best bits, it changes, and it's so like dynamic with people screaming and swearing. Why would you leave him?
The problem also is lower down the pyramid, isn't it? Because if you're a young fella who lives, say, close to Salford and you're going there regularly, but then you've got the option to watch whatever you want on a Saturday at 3 p.m, it's going to look a little bit more tempting. And it depends, I think, on how much you feel like we should enshrine that tradition of attendance lower down the pyramid.
Yeah, but then you're holding fans almost to ransom. Like, I've never been able to afford to go to the games like this. When I was at uni, Aberdeen tickets were discounted, but I still couldn't afford it. It was too much out of your weekly amount of money you've got, so you watch it on TV instead anyway. If you earn average salary, a ticket like in London, a ticket's like 50 quid or something. It's mental.
Yeah,
who can
so
afford
much.
that more than once in a few months? I mean, I barely can. It's not a thing that people can really do. So to say that you're going to hurt your attendances, maybe, but you're just squeezing money out of people. It's become a tourism attraction anyway that people go to a lot of these games in the Premier League. And I think it's more of an event to go to these games than it is to watch it on TV. The European Championships are coming on. I would far rather be at Wembley or Hampden to watch these games than watching it on TV. But the huge amount of money it costs to go and see any of them, and you could have bought tickets, is puts you off being able to do it sometimes. It's not in touch with reality. It's like a lot of the world. People with loads of money can afford to do whatever they want, but the people who can't afford to do anything and want to do these things cannot.
Yeah.
The 7:30 kickoffs are amazing, not the 8:15. I mean, as a kid, I always remember midweek games being 7:30 kickoff, and also now being a journalist and having to work to newspaper deadlines, 7:30 kickoffs are just great. Bring them back. Why are they 7:30 kickoffs?
I don't know.
It makes a huge difference, 7:30 or 7:45.
Yeah.
Why?
It just does, because once you add on the injury time and everything else, it just does make a huge difference.
9:30 feels a lot earlier than 10.
Yeah.
Isn't it just 15 minutes? Or am I?
It never works out like that.
But it's like how 5:52.
You've obviously
feels
never
earlier
had to
than
file
6.
against first edition deadline either, Mina,
No, I didn't.
because it makes a massive difference on that.
Audio Football Club listeners, tell us your favourite kickoff time. AFC podcast at telegraph.co.uk. What about Euro 2020, Matt? The draw has sort of been made, but England know two of their opponents, Czech Republic and Croatia, then one of Serbia, Scotland or Finland?
Norway.
Thank you, JJ.
Because we have to play, Scotland have to play Israel, and then when we inevitably don't win that, we'd have to play one of Serbia or Norway.
I see. So, good draw for England, Matt?
Yeah. All they really wanted to do was avoid any potential group of death, which obviously ended up being the one with France, Germany and Portugal.
That is brutal.
It is brutal.
I think it's hilarious.
And, sometimes, in a normal tournament where we weren't cheating and playing it all at home, then you'd actually say that Croatia and Czech Republic might not be that easy, playing them on neutral territory. I mean, Czech Republic beat us out there. But at Wembley, I can only see us rolling over all three, whoever we play. Sorry if that's Scotland.
Even Croatia?
Croatia aren't that good anymore. And at Wembley, I think we'd
They're
roll
never
them
good
over.
in qualifiers. They barely made it in the World Cup, and then they were amazing in the actual
At
tournament.
Wembley, though, this is what I mean. At a neutral venue, I could see Croatia winning. At Wembley, I don't see them winning.
Yeah, it won't be Scotland.
It would be, yeah. But if they have to finish second in order to avoid a tough journey forward.
No, because this is the weird thing about the draw. If you finish first, you've got a horrible path.
So everyone's going to be aiming for second place.
But if
But
you finish
England-
second, then it's probably Spain in the next round, right?
Yes.
I'd love it if that led to a game where
But England
you're just
can't-
trying to score in your own goal from kickoff over and over again. It's a race to see who can score the most own goals.
Yeah, I think that's the Euro 2020 we all want to see. Let's have some lovely music. Yep, it's a song for Europe, and it's Mina Rizuki. Mina,
Hi.
Inter, top of Serie A.
Boom.
Is this their season?
This is an interesting question because I think it's been asked so non-stop on Italian TV. I mean, this is their best ever start to a campaign, obviously because Inter always need a bit of Juve help. So Juve got relegated, they started to win trophies, and now Juve's coach is the man who's leading them forward. But they've won 12 of their 14 opening games. They have an amazing connection up front between Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez. Their midfield is missing key players in Sensi and Barella, but they're still grinding out wins. They're doing an effective job considering the fact that they played in the Champions League. They have a clear identity and they're always fired up. But when you look at it, Juventus still have another gear to sort of hit because they're still trying to find their feet under their new coach. Sarri's tactics not really being taken on board yet. So you just feel like, whereas this is the ultimate Inter. You don't think that there's another gear that they're going to go to. So based on that alone, I think it's still Juve.
What about over in Germany? Jadon Sancho does not seem happy at Borussia Dortmund. What's going on with him?
This is quite a tough one because he's obviously been disciplined for the fact that he came back late from international duty. He was very upset at the fact that he was taken off sort of 36 minutes in when they were playing Bayern Munich. He felt humiliated also because the coach, Lucien Favre, came out afterwards and said, I took him off because it wasn't good enough. Sancho feels that he's the man who a lot of the time provides the impact or does something different, like he scored against Barcelona midweek. He's, he wants to be a little bit more protected. I can understand what he's feeling, but I can also understand the club's feelings as well, because, it's a little bit like you shouldn't have come back late. You are sort of acting up a little bit at times. Whereas he feels like, why am I not being protected? Why was I hung out to dry against Bayern Munich? So they both have a point. I'm one of those people that always believes the club is right. That's why I don't like Bale. So I'm just one of those types of people. I don't like Del Piero or Totti. I don't like guys who try to
I don't like Del Piero.
No,
Whoa.
I don't like. I liked him for a long time because he was a club man. But then when they start to want to be bigger than the club, I'm like, get out. And if you want to play when you're 432 years old, then you really need to know your players, sort of thing, And so I don't like those types. I'm always one of those people that sides with the club. And when it comes to Sancho, I can understand why he feels aggrieved. But at the end of the day, this is a club that took a chance on him. It's a big club in Germany. And so try to do the best you can and swallow it, right? Because this is your path forward. And if you're seen as a good and flexible guy, you'll do a lot more better. Like, you'll do a lot better than people who might think that you're selling out.
It's a bit worrying on Sancho, all this at such a young age, that he's kind of acting like this and that he seems to have got carried away with being linked to United and the 100 million price tag.
This is why we have to protect our youth.
In the England youth sides, a couple of years ago, him and Foden got disciplined for turning up late for a training session. So it just feels like there's maybe something there where he needs a bit better advice around him or something, because he doesn't need to do this at his age. He will get his move probably in the summer, whatever happens. All of the noise and all of this around him isn't doing anyone any good.
No, this is what happened. This is what happened initially with Zaniolo and Wazeken as well. They were both sort of late. And when the journalists keep talking about them like they're the heroes, oh my God, let's bring in Mason Mount, let's bring in Jadon Sancho. No, let's calm down, because these guys get carried away and they're being linked to so many big clubs, and then they start losing it.
I gotta hope they take it as a kick up the rear end. It could be the kind of thing that they talk about in 5 years' time on an interview, and they say, yes, that was the real turning point for me. I realised I had to knuckle down. And
JJ learns how to use a non-sweary euphemism all too late in this week's show. What about in Spain, Mina? Under the radar footballer Lionel Messi scored a winner for Barcelona against Atletico Madrid. Is this another country in which we can give them the title now?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I thought that, to be honest, when you watched that game, you thought Atletico Madrid had just so many chances to actually take the lead. They were playing in Madrid. Morata just thought he scored. Everyone thought that they scored, but Ter Stegen was on another level and he just blocked out everything. And obviously, you're starting to see the top three in the terms of Griezmann, Suarez and Messi actually starting to click somewhat. A lot of boos for Griezmann, FYI. But that was
booze or booze?
Yeah,
bargain booze.
BOOS.
Boo.
Yeah.
Okay. Not booze. But you just didn't think that. Again, I just don't think Barcelona are that good, and neither Atleti. I think it's Madrid, sorry. But if you saw that match against PSG in the beginning, before they sort of threw it away because Valverde came off, this is a team that is really playing because Zidane is really a very good coach.
Let's not get into that.
Let us finish with Freddie Ljungberg again. He's back. Frank Lampard's back. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is back. They're all managing in the Premier League. So I want to know which noughties footballing hero you would like to see get the call next, JJ. Oh, before you, JJ, what about our friends on Twitter? At Ronnie Huggins says, Carrick. Cheers, Ronnie. At The Cricket List says, Nicky Butt at some point, surely. And Phil Drogba will be tempted one day too. And Graham agrees with you, Matt, and says Duncan Ferguson, although I would class him as more 90s. JJ, noughties footballers you'd like to see manage?
I would just like it if Alan Shearer was really good at being a manager. That would make me really happy. But maybe he is?
Yep. I mean, the evidence suggests he might not be.
Yeah, I feel like Joel Cole might be quite good. He talks well about things.
Yeah, maybe. Mina, a face of disdain. Who have you got?
I just don't know if I had to call Didier Drogba. I feel like would be a lot of fun. Otherwise, I would really like it if Ronaldo retired and came back as a coach.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Just because I would want to see how he would talk to the players and whether he would want to just be like, oh, just get off, and then he'll come on himself.
Didn't he
Sub
do it when
himself on.
Portugal won the... Didn't he basically manage Portugal?
Yeah, when they won.
Yeah.
How about you, Matt? 90s hero? Not 90s hero.
Yeah.
Noughties hero?
I've already done mine with Duncan Ferguson. Yeah, I was just checking he did play in the noughties, and he did.
Good.
Yeah, love it. Just one game. I don't want him to be a long-term manager. I just want one game, him versus Liverpool, on his own, with no shirt on.
That'll do it. That's your lot for this week. You can get in contact with me before next week's show if you'd like to, at Tom with an H Gibbs on Twitter, a website we all know very well. Send us an email too if you'd like. You know the address by now, I'm sure of it. afcpodcast@telegraph.co.uk. We'll read out the best of what you send us. Don't forget to subscribe to Audio Football Club. Simply type the words Audio Football Club into your phone or internet-enabled computing device. Go to where that takes you, probably iTunes or podcasts or Spotify, something like that. I'm running out of steam. Subscribe, do it. Go on, it'll be fun. Thanks to Joel Grove on the buttons. Thanks to you for your company. I'll talk to you again soon.